Back to our top story now, and Iranian officials have reached a breakthrough in nuclear negotiations with the 6 world powers. Foreign Minister Mohammed Zarif says his country has found a solution for its nuclear programme and is drafting a statement. Let's get more on that now. We're joined by British Muslim commentator Mohammed Ansar. Mohammed, how is the deal being viewed by Iranians?
I think the view has been very interesting from the Iranians. I think on the one hand, Iran has been consistently saying over the last 13 years while these negotiations have been going on, that their nuclear program is completely peaceful and is only for civilian purposes. And then I think there was a large degree of surprise that these talks would necessarily have to have been called. So I think at the minute we have an uncomfortable peace because, of course, this is only a provisional set of recommendations and agreements that have been put in place ahead of the summer.
Are you worried that this is a deal which could collapse then?
The US Department of State has been very clear in its position. As far as they're concerned, sanctions are not off the table. As far as they're concerned, these are only a provisional set of agreements and deals. Iran has to go quite far into fulfilling its end of the bargain. So some of these things will be giving unparalleled access to its nuclear reactors and their nuclear program, more than any country in the history of nuclear program before. At the same time, they would also need to reduce their nuclear output by 2/3, their plutonium output completely, almost entirely. And so the US are still keeping quite a hard line here. I think they're saying we're going to wait and see how this goes.
This is, though, a preliminary win, at least for Iran, isn't it? The lifting of sanctions is what they were pushing for, and it now looks like that's what they've got.
Yeah, Javad Zarif has been quite openly optimistic about the deal that's been put on the table. He says, in fact, that sanctions will be lifted, whereas the US is saying that that's not necessarily the case. So I'm not sure that all of the terms have been hammered out, but initially, I think this is a positive step, is something to be welcomed. It will certainly ratchet down the tensions that Iran is facing against the US. But then on the international stage, people are also talking about the US and a potential hypocrisy around the fact that its main partner and ally in the region, Israel, is not subject to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and also doesn't allow arms inspectors to come in.
You were talking about the way that the Iranian people feel about it. Do you think that they will feel that they have made a lot of compromises? You talked about the unparalleled access that the Western powers will have to Iran's nuclear program. I think
that's probably a fair assumption. As far as people in Iran are concerned and the people I've spoken to, they are concerned that this much pressure has been brought to bear on them. I mean, and the big word we're not talking about are sanctions. The idea that sanctions would need to be lifted or were put in place when there may not have actually been a threat to the West. Things that really are a threat to the West and a destabilization around the region. The US and the international community isn't really tackling the hardline response they've taken towards Russia and the situation in Ukraine and Crimea. This is of the making of the US, of NATO, of EU, with their funding and with their hardline programs against the region. As far as Iran is concerned, I think it's a positive step. I think it's also very politic at a time when the Iran and Shia-backed Houthis in Yemen are making grounds and potentially is pushing Yemen into quite a severe civil war.
Mohammed Ansar, thank you very much for talking to us this evening.
Thank you very much.